Hey guys, John here, back with another video for you. So after the one I did the other day about 9/11, I had actually quite a few people who asked me to talk a little bit more about my Army experience, which, to be honest, I've sort of purposefully not done because I didn't really want to use that as sort of a crutch for what I do. I didn't want people to listen to me just because I happen to, be a veteran or whatever. I wanted people to listen simply based off what I actually had to say. So I'll be honest, I'm a little hesitant to talk about it, not because I can't talk about it or anything like that, but just I haven't wanted to use it like that. But from what people have said or the feedback I've got, people are finding it helpful. So I decided I'll give it a try, maybe talk about it a little bit more, and depending on, how the responses go and so forth, I may do more of it. So anyway, when I was in Iraq, I was stuck on a very, very small camp. Our camp was about 300 meters, 300 yards wide, and about a mile long, which might seem big, but for comparison, the camp that was sort of right next to us, Camp Victory, which was kind of the big camp in that area, it was about 20 square miles. So we were a dinky little camp over there. And in the year that I was there, we had... when we left, I think the number was 1,159 mortar rounds that had landed inside of our walls. So inside that 300 yard by 1 mile long little area. And so if you can imagine a Google map and the pins that you can place on a map is basically just covered. It would be like a map just covered in pins. That's what the mortar map looked like. And the camp actually had a nickname. It was called Mortaritaville because we got mortared so much when we were there. So every square foot of the camp had a mortar round land on it at one time or another, which, as you can imagine, is pretty terrifying going through it. I still look back on it and it's just kind of strange to think about that I went through that. But, every day when I woke up, I sort of knew, and everybody that was there knew that, your walk to the bathroom or the shower or the chow to get breakfast or whatever, that could be your last walk. You just never knew when, the next mortar attack was going to happen. And if it happened to, be right where you were, there wasn't a ton that you could do. So it was, again, just a pretty surreal experience. Anyway, the closest I ever came to actually getting hit was when I was over there. I ran a warehouse, and I was just leaving that warehouse, and I got about 20 feet outside of the warehouse. So I was far enough away to where I really couldn't just dive back in the warehouse. And the camp sirens had started going off. So every time that, we had people that were on the walls that were watching and so forth. And every time that, they sensed or felt like a mortar was coming or whatever, don't know exactly how they did it because I never worked up there. But whenever there was sort of an impending mortar attack, the sirens would start going off. And so those sirens started going off. And there happened to be a Connex box. A lot of people call them shipping containers. If you've seen movies or TV shows with those big shipping containers that they move around on the big sort of transportation ships, that was sort of what we worked with a lot when I was over there. So there happened to be one of those just a few feet away, and I dove on the ground because that's immediately what you had to do, is dive on the ground. The way mortars work, when they hit, they sort of explode up. So if you're on the ground, you can, a lot of times save yourself even if a mortar round lands pretty close to you. So I dove on the ground, and then I crawled up next to the side of the Connex to give myself a little bit more cover. And turns out that it was a really good thing that I did, because the mortar rounds were landing sort of right by where I was. So I was on one side of the Connex box, and the mortar rounds started landing a little bit past the other side of the Connex box. And as they came in, a lot of times with mortar rounds, what they do is they either sort of walk them out or they walk them back. And so they were sort of walking back closer and closer to that Connex box. And I remember the last few rounds that they hit pretty much right next to the other side of the Connex box, because I could hear the shrapnel hitting up against the side. And when it was over, I went back and looked and saw the damage from the shrapnel to the side of the Connex, and like the concussion from the round was just making that Connex box just ring like it was boom, boom, just really loud sound. So anyway, So yeah, I was sitting there laying there as all this was happening, and I was convinced that, when you've been through that and you're in that situation, I was sure that there were more rounds coming, and eventually they were just going to land on my head. And you have this instinct to want to get up and run, but it's the worst thing that you can do, because as soon as you do that, you put yourself in that position where when those rounds explode up, you put yourself in a position where you can get hit by them, even if they're far away. So you really just have to lay there and hope. And so that's what I did. I just laid there waiting. And that was sort of my life and everybody's life who was there for about a year that we were there. But it, even as surreal and crazy as that experience was, it taught me something that I have used literally every day since. And I credit it for the majority of any success that I've achieved since then. And that is the ability to endure and be patient and stay focused, even when everything around me seems like it's falling apart. So when I got back, from being over there, and I was sort of dealing with PTSD, and I was jumping from job to job, and it just sort of felt like my world was crumbling around me. Like, it was never as bad as what was happening, when I was over there. And so that ability to be patient and stay focused helped me through that. When I was having a difficult time with my relationship, and most of it was because, I was having trouble with my career, and I was basically a loser, and, I felt like our relationship wasn't going to last, and so forth. Like, being able to calm down, be patient, and stay focused helped me through that. When I started coding and realized that this was going to be harder than I thought it was, and it didn't really matter how smart I was, that I was going to have to really work at this. Like, it allowed me to persevere through that. Even now, where right now I'm living and working in the same building while we build our house. Like, this is not a comfortable situation for me. But again, the ability to stay focused and continue moving forward and not freak out and let it get to me, that ability to persist and keep focused and keep moving forward, most of that came from my time in Iraq and the things that went on there. So, and I don't necessarily think that you need to go to a war zone to develop that ability, but the big thing is that you need to know just how important it is. In some ways, it's everything, because no matter what you do, you're going to face adversity. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how well prepped you may or may not be for what you're going to do with your life and your career. It doesn't matter. You're going to face adversity at some point. And the big question is, how will you react to that adversity? Will you cut tail and run? Or will you stick in there and keep grinding? Now, that's something only you can answer, but you have to know that that is important, and that when that moment comes, what will determine the difference between being successful and failing is not anything to do with, again, intelligence or circumstances or luck or anything like that. It's ultimately going to come down to your ability to persist, to stick in there, and to be able to stay focused and keep moving forward. So again, it's just a matter of knowing how important that is and being ready when it comes. Now, of course, when it comes to web development, you don't need to face the adversity that you're going to face alone. That's what I'm here. That's why I do what I do. And I've got a whole curriculum full of courses to help you fast track down that path, to give you the assistance to help you to get there faster and get through those roadblocks with a lot less pain and a lot less effort. So again, that's sort of what I'm here for, is to help you through that. And you can get access to my entire curriculum for nothing over on Skillshare. So all the details on that are at johnmorrisonline.com/Skillshare. But the big thing is know that there will be challenges, there will be doubts, there will be fears, and there will be lots of hard work. And it's your ability to persist that will determine how far you go.